Hey friends, it's Jess from jesscrafts.com, and today I'm here with a scene card featuring a stamp from Stamp Anniething. So for today's card, I'm coloring the Sea Witch image. After I made the card and decided I wanted to share it, I realized that the stamp set is no longer available individually, but is available as part of a larger set of stamps. And so I will link to that, but the Stamp Anniething has a lot of really awesome stamps, and they have a ton of free digital stamps right now because they are trying to support people's crafting during these stay-at-home times. And they have been having in their Facebook group some coloring parties and fun things like that. So I would certainly suggest checking them out, and I'll leave links to their store, where their digital stamps are, and to their Facebook group so you can check it out and see if there's something that might appeal to you. I am using some light purples to color in the Sea Witch. I'm being inspired by a famous Sea Witch who I'm sure you all can predict, who my inspiration here is. And I used BV 000, 00, and quadruple 0, so the very, very lightest one. And when I stamp an image like this, sometimes it's hard to get a really perfect stamping, even with a stamping tool. So like the eyes are supposed to be really solid, but I wasn't able to stamp them in a really, really solid way. So I just took a Copic multi-liner and filled them in so they would look like a really dark black. I've heard a lot of people do that in general, like they just like the idea of like coloring over the eyes of even little critters and just, kind of making them stand out a bit more. And then I'm going to use some C's for the black. They are grays, of course. If you color things solid black, it just doesn't have as much interest. So I'll be using C9, C7, and C5. With the Sea Witch here, I'm doing very, very simple shading. I almost always do incredibly simple, like drop shadow shading, nothing crazy. So like I want her to have a little bit of dimension. So if I put the shadows on the sides of her body, the center of her body will look like it's sort of coming out towards you, which would make sense. Or like her hair is going to be casting a shadow over her face, so a lot of my shadows are there. In terms of coloring the hair, I want to think about, again, where things would be like coming forward, what parts of the hair are coming forward, because she has these sort of waves to her hair. So there at the top, in this first chunk of hair, there's like a bump of hair and then it recedes a little bit. And so I'm going to put a shadow in where that kind of curve is so that it looks like it has some dimension to it. So your shadow areas are going to be what is furthest from you if you were to look at it as a three-dimensional image, and then of course your highlights would be what is closest to you, the opposite. I'm not doing too much detail in her hair here. Like I said, Stamp Anniething in their Facebook group, their design team members have been doing live coloring, and so there's videos for you to check out, and they have some amazing colorists on their team that can give a lot more detail about how to do something like more elaborate with these really beautiful detailed stamps that they have. But I was just trying to keep it a little bit more simple today because that's just the style of coloring I tend to prefer when I don't have a lot of time. I used V20 and 25 for the bottoms of her tentacles, and now I'm ready to create a background. So, as I said, inspired by a famous Sea Witch, if you look at the Lair, it has these like layers in it. And so I just wanted to create something kind of similar. I wanted to emphasize the purple, maybe add in a slightly different color of purple. And so I basically just drew a curve here and cut it out. I'm going to use Seedless Preserves and Black Soot Distress Oxide ink. I apologize because my camera was not, like my card panel is not centered in the camera. So sorry about that, but you can still kind of get an idea of what I'm doing. I am basically adding the black where my curved mask is, and that's just scrap piece of cardstock, cut a curve in it. Nothing too fancy there. You could of course use a die, but I was just trying to keep it simple, show you what you could do with not a lot of supplies, and honestly it was faster than getting out a die and cutting it. So I'm going to use the black, like I said, right up against the mask and then blend it out to the Seedless preserves the lighter purple. I'm going to make these all relatively the same size, each of these curves. Again, it's just to create a little interest in the background. I'm using a Picket Fen Studio blender brush. Any blender tool you have would work fine for this technique. I just like that the blender brushes get, I don't know, for me, they've been adding soft color and layers of color pretty easily. And also, I just don't feel the need to change them out as much. So I'm actually using the same brush for the black and the purple, and I'm not noticing it getting on, like the black getting all over my purple Distress Oxide ink. As I get towards the top, to add a little bit of interest and to make it look like it has some dimension to it, I'm slowly using more purple and less black so that there kind of appears to be some light coming down from the top. And so nothing really special about any of that blending, but it does add some interest. I think that adding some sparkle to that background or some water droplets might be really fun too. I used a Cat Scrappiness Distressed Edge rectangle. I just thought it went well with this particular stamp set. I fussy cut her out, which I normally don't do, but I didn't want to fussy cut those little tiny pieces in between her arms and her tentacles and everything. So I just took a Copic marker that was similar to the color of Seedless Preserves and colored in that area. And I think that it worked out well enough that you wouldn't really notice until you look detailed at the card. And then you wouldn't mind, especially because if you're a fellow crafter, you'd be like, I wouldn't want to cut out that either. So I wanted to pick a banner that would fit my sentiment. What's nice about clear stamps is you can kind of hold it up to all the different banners that you have and see which one fits it well. And I wanted to stamp it with my Misty tool just so that I got a really good impression, really nice heat embossing, because I stamped it with Versamark and white heat embossed it. And one way to accomplish that is to put the die cut back in its negative space and line it up, because I had that crooked die cut piece. Well, not crooked, it's like a slanted banner, so it's a little bit harder to kind of put down securely in your Misty. And then I will attach it to the opposite side as the Sea Witch for some contrast and cut off the edge. And that is it for my card today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in more crafting tutorials, be sure to subscribe to my channel and check out Stamp Anniething for some free digital stamps and great tutorials. Have an awesome day. Bye.